So this is from the Chicago Architecture Center. Notice how it's architecture, and we do product design, but I think it still relates exactly to the process we take, which is what makes it even better. Because I think it shows just how universal design thinking is in the first place. And as you'll see on the graph that they provide, number one is defining what the problem is. Usually with clients that we work with, it's just, hey, what is your vision? What do you want to change in the world that will have a positive impact on your users? And like, who are your users actually going to be? And that's something that we define through what's called a vision brief, which is basically just 2 pages of us asking questions and having a conversation with the client about like, what do you actually want to build in the first place? Usually it's some of the pie in the sky stuff, but also just about like, where is your niche going to be? Like, who are some of your competitors in the market and things like that. And that goes into step 2, which is kind of collecting information. And as I was saying, that's identifying like some of the risks that come with your idea, who else is in the market. One of the things that's actually really important to make sure you find in your own product is what's called a value prop. And a value prop is what makes your product unique in the first place and what value does it provide that nobody else does. Because, for example, Lyft and Uber are huge, but since then, like so many other ride-sharing services have come out, and a lot of those have not really grown to be successful because they're just doing the same thing and not really offering anything unique beyond what the other ones are. Obviously, that's not true for all of them. But if you're just making a clone of something, it's most likely not going to be successful, even with a lot of design thought put into it. Step 3, which is brainstorming and analyzing, this is where things get really generative. Typically, you take either designers or the client and you're like, hey, let's all just whiteboard ideas. What are some possible things that could make this thing tick? What are some features that would be really cool? Just think of all the things you've ever used, be super creative, and you just put everything out there. And then here in architecture, it seems a bit different where it's build a model. I think they're literally referring to building a physical model. We don't quite do that. We're gonna build a prototype instead. And just to take a step back, these 4 steps right here in the product design world would be more like a design sprint, basically. We've run a few of those at Yeti. They could range anywhere from like 3 days to like 2 weeks. And the idea behind that is you take a morsel of an idea or a vision that somebody has and you give it like actual life. And going back into step 4, that is what like a prototype would be. It would just be you quickly design something. It's a functional app for all intents and purposes. You just don't develop it. The prototype is like something that you do in Figma where you can click around in it with the user and you could just ask them a bunch of questions about it. And by then, those actual users that you want, you've identified who those are going to be. It's like, okay, we're going to have 30 to 40-year-old single parents using this app or like something like that. And these are their goals and this is how they're feeling. And that's who you identify. And then this part is basically validating those ideas that you had in the first place, which is super important because this is the part that some apps don't necessarily do or some businesses don't do. And it allows you to identify like critical issues with your hypotheses in the first place. Because at the end of the day, those visions and hypotheses you have are basically just assumptions until they're validated. And this step allows you to validate those assumptions, understand, oh, somebody actually liked this part more than we thought, or somebody didn't really like this at all and we thought that was gonna be the whole thing. And just knowing that those are the things that are actually gonna be successful versus not successful allows you to build a really solid foundation. And step 5 in our world is basically what's called the agile process, which is rapidly like iterating both on the design. You might start development at this point in time and just going back and forth. And that's where you get feedback from your users, which goes into step 6. So this is from architecture, but I think it's like the parallel is pretty strong with product development. And it's basically just a lot of making hypotheses, especially as a product grows. Your PM is somebody who most likely will generate some of those along with your designers. Validating it either by like A/B testing the product a bit more or doing actual interviews and then just adding it and bringing it into your product. And a lot of the benefit of this is that it's done in a very cost efficient way.